Welcome to the Register's Report. It's great to be here again at the local scene. They've been very helpful to me in the ability to share real estate information. We'll talk about the numbers for last month, the month of July, recordings at the Registry of Deeds. I have a great guest in the second segment of the show, Bill Callahan, a longtime realtor, talking about some of the changes in the industry, as well as what's going on in the marketplace, and then some of our great county and colony history. So let's go right to the numbers. As you can see, the numbers of recordings of deeds, which are sales of property, were higher in July than they were in June. 696 sales versus 672. 8% less than last year, 5% less year to date. The average sale price for the month of July is still a very high number, $696,476. Plymouth County is a very diverse place. Very high-end homes and the Hinghams and the Marions and all of those Duxburys and all of those, and then more modest numbers in the middle towns. But every community you'll see has sold real estate. There are 27 communities in Plymouth County, from Abington down to Whitman. You'll see all these sales from January to July. The largest number of sales have been in Plymouth, Brockton being second, and other communities falling behind those, but still have activity. The next number you're going to see is a bar chart of mortgages. Mortgages have ticked up a little bit based upon the rates changing down somewhat. We've started to see a little bit of refinancing going on as the rates drop, as they will in the future once the Federal Reserve takes some actions. There'll be an opportunity for people to refinance. But 1,237 mortgages were recorded in July, again, higher than the 1,125 in June, 60% more than last July, but year to date, down 3%. We always follow foreclosure issues, particularly since the meltdown of 2003. The foreclosure numbers are really, really low. There was a freeze during COVID, and they really haven't gone up that much. There are only 11 foreclosure deeds in Plymouth County in all of July, more than the 6 in June. Just for your information, a foreclosure deed is when a lender has taken back property, usually for failure to pay. Sometimes jobs get in the way, you lose a job, somebody loses a job in the family, you have a health issue, that's when people are getting into trouble. But if you find yourself getting into difficulty, reach out to a federal housing counselor. The next number you're going to see is the foreclosure notices. A foreclosure notice is the first instrument we see at the registry that shows someone is in trouble. Again, if you're facing difficulty, reach out to a federal housing council. They can get you into their circuit, try to help you maybe modify the loan, extend the life of the loan, or things like that. Don't give up. Always fight for your property, because it's hard to get back once you get yourself deep into trouble. 35 foreclosure notices in July, 42 in June, and 4% up year to date. So you can also see a chart of the foreclosures and foreclosure notices for the 27 communities of Plymouth County. Still a lot of zeros there. You see in Brockton, Plymouth, and Wareham, a little bit of an uptick, but for the most part, they're still under control. So if you have not signed up for our free property fraud alert, please do so. You go on our website, go to resources, look up fraud alert. If If you put your email in there, anything that is recorded against your name, you'll get a notice, and that's the best way to stay current. There's not a lot of fraud going on out there. They're usually between family members, but still you gotta pay attention for your most valuable asset. A great guest coming in again next segment, William Callahan of William Callahan Realty Group and Kelly Williams, and we'll see you in the next segment. Welcome back to the Register's Report. This segment of the show is something educational in nature. We've had surveyors, appraisers, many realtors, and I have a great residential mortgage person on the show today who has been a guest in the past. And we're going to talk about mortgages because certainly that's the story of the week. Federal Reserve is meeting on Wednesday. Expect to make their first cut in Federal Reserve rate for a long time, and we'll see what happens with the mortgage rate. So Steve Amico, great to have you again.
Good to see you again, John. Thank you.
Steve has been a guest on this show multiple times.
Yes, I have. Thank you.
And you are a vice president of Coastal Heritage Bank.
Yes. So we have offices going from Quincy down to Kingston. We have 11 offices. We've been in business for 120 some odd years. Several different banks merged together, several small banks merged together to create Coastal Heritage. But as you know, we use the oldest charter that we have. So we've got Situate Federal Savings Bank, S Bank, which is the old South Shore Cooperative, Weymouth Bank, and Equitable Bank, which was up in Lynn, all merged together to create Coastal Heritage Bank.
Right.
And we have a great branch network, like I said, from Quincy all the way down to Kingston with 11 offices. I've got two, including myself, two additional outstanding loan offices in Steve Masterliz and Lisa Swain, who cover different areas. And the bank is doing very well.
Great. And I know you also were very active in your home community of Hanson.
Yes.
For many years, various positions. Back on the finance committee, the hardest working committee in the town.
Yep, back on the finance committee, and I've been involved not only in the finance committee, but I've been involved over the past 15 years in the holiday festival for the town of Hanson. And as I was explaining to you earlier, we're actually running a trunk or treat on October 19th at the old McQuan School property, which we're putting out there right now. So it's a fundraiser for fireworks for December 7th, our regular holiday festival.
That's great.
But as you know, towns are running into the same difficulty as normal everyday people with the with funding and trying to fund schools and police and fire and and it's all coming down on the taxpayer.
And county governments.
Yeah, yep.
So let's talk a little bit about the mortgage market as it is right now. We have seen a little bit of an increase in the number of mortgages. A lot of people don't realize, like I do, that many, many years ago the rates were 18%. And we've had some really good years, prior to the Federal Reserve taking their actions, the rates have gone up, and people are disillusioned and blame the high rates for the current mortgage dilemma we're in.
Well, it's funny. I was sharing with you earlier that I was speaking with a borrower who was a younger borrower in his mid-20s, who was, explaining how high these rates are from the 3 3/4 rates. And I looked at him and I said, I bet you don't remember going back a number of years when the Patriots were not good and the Red Sox didn't have a team that ever made it to the World Series or won a World Series. And he looked at me and says, really? I said, yeah. Right. But, I remember buying my house in 1984, and we paid 14 3/4% and paid 2 points for that loan. because that's what the times were. The average interest rate right now over the past 25 years is really right around 7.25%. I did a little bit of research on that, and it's right around 7.25, 7.5% is the average interest rate from 1999 to today. We've been in a very, very good area from 2015 to 2021, right around there when the rates started to go up. So I think that the rates that we're seeing now is probably best for people who are looking to make deposits into their checking accounts, savings accounts, and mainly their certificates of deposits, where they can get a little bit of an interest rate, and people who are buying a home can afford a home as well. I was just talking earlier today with one of the gentlemen here at PAC TV, and he said to me, when is the best time to buy a home? And the truth, best time to buy a home is now, because you're never going to pay less for the house than you are today. But if the rates go down in the future, you can always refinance, and that house now costs you less.
Right. No, a lot of people advise people, if it's right for you, if you're ready, and you find a property that you love, you have to go for it.
Exactly. Exactly.
A lot of people are watching what the Federal Reserve will do this week.
Right.
There's been a lot of speculation over many, many months that there might be a cut in the federal fund rates. Yes. However, I think it's a pretty good bet this week that they will make some kind of decision. What are you hearing about that?
Well, I've heard discussions that it's going to be around 0.25%. And they said the possibility of 0.5% isn't out of the question, but I'm not sure that that's in the realm for today. But we'll see. We'll see what it is. I think the rates have already kind of absorbed what they're going to do. It may come down another eighth or somewhere, depending upon what they decide on Wednesday. But as much as they can decline, the better off we are. And I've also heard that possibly this year, before the end of the year, we could be looking at around 0.75% reduction.
So clearly for a long time they were in the sevens. To many people, they've come down to the sixes.
Yep. So as of Friday, and I'll work on as of Friday. As of Friday, we had a 0 and a 1 point loan. The 0 point loan was at 6%. The 1 point loan was at 5.75. As of today, the rates did go up 0.125% on the 0 point loan, not on the 1 point loan. So as of today, as of this recording, the interest rate was 6.125%. But again, I think that's just a little fluctuation in what happened in the stock market over the weekend. I know the stock market isn't open, but they still do trading over the weekend and futures and things like that.
So people have been following this decision with great interest because the real estate market is kind of stuck at a lower level than the higher interest rates. The very, very low inventory have resulted in people not moving.
Right.
So hopefully it's a positive step in people's mindset of deciding to list their homes, make their move to upside or downsize, and get the market moving again.
I think that's part of the problem, is that there's not enough homes on the market to supply the buyers that are out there. And because of that, people are kind of stagnant in there's still bidding wars going on in some homes. It's not like the houses are being reduced. And if they are being reduced, there's a reason for their reduction. But I think you hit the nail right on the head when you said, as the rates come down, people who have those low interest rates now may want to sell their property so that they can buy their next home to upsize it or their next home to downsize themselves. I know in my town, they're building quite a bit of over 55s. And they're more condos than anything else. So they're building quite a bit of over 55 condos with, I guess, the hope of the houses that are selling in town, people will stay in town, but they'll move to the over 55s.
And open it up to first-time home buyers and
Exactly.
people that have been struggling for a while to get
Exactly.
a home. The best thing you can do is buy a home and take advantage of appreciation and paying off your mortgage.
Right, and there's a lot of questions going on, and they haven't been answered on the new buyer broker piece as well. That who's going to pay for the real estate broker for the buyer? Is it going to be included with the seller's fee, or the seller now can decide they don't want to pay? So how does that buyer's broker get paid? And I know Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae are working on, and FHFA is working on, how can we incorporate the buyer fee as part of that as well? And that's something that they're working on, because I don't know how they're going to incorporate that, because it's all part of the sale price.
Yeah, I don't know how they're going to sort that out, but obviously pretty serious settlement paid by the National Association of Realtors.
Right, and it's funny, because I was talking to one of our attorneys who's been in the business for years and years and years, and he says, Steve, I thought I knew everything about this. He says, I'm starting from scratch all over again, especially with this new kind of twist into, how do you pay a buyer's broker?
So the best thing someone can do that is either looking to sell and move somewhere else, and they'll have to take a new mortgage possibly, or maybe they won't, or a person looking to get into ownership, how do they best prepare themselves to go see, before they go see you and look for a mortgage?
Okay, so best prepared is to make sure you have all your documents in order. You normally need 2 months of your bank statements. You need a month's worth of pay stubs, consecutive. You need to have at least 2 years W-2s, and a lot of times 1040s combined. If you're renting, make sure you see if you can get some sort of information on your rental, because remember, we cannot see on the credit report whether you pay your rent on time, but your landlord will tell us if you're paying your rent on time, or if, I know a lot of them are doing Venmo now or automatic deductions, and you can actually get a printout as to when all your rents are paid. So get all of that in order, as well as make sure that your credit is in order. You're up to date on all your credit cards, your loan payments, your student loan payments. Gather all that information. Make sure that you're putting everything all together.
And there are free sites you can look at your credit score.
Yep. Best one that I have seen is Credit Karma. Credit Karma, it's free. It'll give you your TransUnion and your Equifax score. It's not always 100% accurate, but it's going to be pretty close to accurate. Also, a lot of the credit cards that you have out there will also give you a FICO score. And, kind of keep monitoring that to make sure that, you're staying on top of things. With Credit Karma, the nice thing is you can actually go see your credit report and see if anyone is reporting something that you didn't know about.
Right.
So that's always
It may
a good
be
thing.
challengeable.
Maybe challengeable, yeah. You can dispute it. Once you put a dispute in, then everything is being put on hold until that dispute is settled.
Yeah. So let's talk about where we're going. Right now we're in the fall, going into, winter months. Usually slows down, and then people make the turn. So where do you think we're going through the end of the year, even with a slight reduction by the Federal Reserve?
Well, a lot of people move based off of school startings and stoppings. So people who are moving in their town, may not be changing school districts,
Right.
so that's still going to be out and about there. But people who are moving from one town to another town, I think you're going to start to see that pick up just a little bit more in the October, November time, so that people can close on their homes in December, so that they can start their new schools in January, which is the best thing for them to do because they don't really want to move in the middle of a school year if they have to move their children from one school to another. But I think if the rates come down, and from what the feds were saying is, they could potentially move as much as 0.75% this year. So if that's the case, you might see the interest rates come back down below 6% and maybe the 5.5 to 5 3/4 rates.
For people I've talked to, they're waiting for it to get into the 5s. Because even in the 5s, they may have the opportunity to refinance.
Right.
And how would you advise someone looking at a higher rate? How much difference does it need to be before you refinance?
Rule of thumb is about 0.75%.
Okay.
If you can save 0.75%, you'll be saving money over the long term. So, if you're refinancing from one loan to another loan and you're going down 0.75%, that's great. But the other thing to look at is if the rates are going down, you may want to reduce your term. That's even going to be a more savings. So as long as you're comfortable with your monthly payment, you might be able to reduce that term from 30 years, which you might be 1 or 2 years into, to a 25-year or a 20-year term.
Right.
If the rates come down low enough.
Save all those years of interest.
Save all those years of interest. That's where your big savings is in the years,
Yeah.
not just the interest rate, but the years that you're saving.
Okay.
So if you went from a 30-year to a 30-year again, you're actually going backwards a little bit. Even though you're saving money on the interest rate, you're giving it back in the years.
Yeah, because you're paying interest instead of principal.
Correct. You're actually starting from square one
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
where if you go from a 30-year to a 25-year and you've only paid 2 or 3 years in, you're saving 2 or 3 years in the back end.
And what are you seeing out there in the market for points and, refinance costs, the cost of the closings?
Well, the cost of the closings, depending upon the loan amount, the closing costs are averaging anywhere from $2,800 to $3,500. Depending upon if it's a refinance, it might be a little bit less because they can save some money on the lender's coverage title insurance because there's discounts there. There's discounts if you refinance with your current lender. If it's a bank, I don't know, mortgage companies are a little bit different.
Sure.
But if it's a bank, you can always save money if you're refinancing with the same bank. I know that's the way it is with us. We have discounted attorney fees, discounted title insurance fees if it's long as it's in the first 7 years of the mortgage. You don't need a plot plan because the plot plan is already received. So there's a lot of discounts in there that could save you $600, $700, even $800.
Yeah. So the bottom line for people out there right now, in this current state of our economy, with the Federal Reserve decision coming up, if you're looking at the mortgage side of a purchase, you got to pay attention.
Correct. Yep, you have to look at it. I mean, the rates are changing daily. Sometimes, in mortgage companies actually look at rates on an hourly basis sometimes. As a bank, we look at them on a day-to-day basis. So we get our mortgage rates right around 9:30, 10 o'clock every morning, and they're published thereafter. But yeah, always pay attention to the rates, pay attention to what the fees are, because sometimes they won't call them fees, they'll call them origination monies, or they'll kind of tweak those out a little bit. So just be concerned with the fees that are going on.
In pre-approval from lenders?
Pre-approval, very, very well needed. You need to do a pre-approval. Get your documents together, the same documents that you would get together for a regular mortgage. Get those mortgage documents together, get them to the bank, do a full application, and the bank will give you a pre-approval good for up to 90 days. And then it's just a matter of re-getting a little bit of information to extend it another 90 days.
And tips for first-time home buyers. I always try to help those people out that are really getting frustrated. So I read a poll, 2/3 of every renter believe they would never own a home. That's pretty sad.
That is very sad. Tips for first-time home buyers would be do a first-time homebuyers class. In some cases, if you go through like QCAP or some of the other agencies, there might be additional funds available for you so that you can use towards down payment or closing cost assistance. I know the Federal Home Loan Bank during the months of April, May, and June normally have programs out there. I know they're not for now, but during April, May, and June, they have programs, an equity builder program and a housing your workforce program and a lift up home ownership program that gives you anywhere from $25,000 to $50,000 in down payment assistance. So keep your eyes open for those. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to give me a call anytime. Be more than happy to, talk to them and let them know what programs that we're hearing about and help them out.
And a couple of months ago, I had a guest who also lives in the town of Hanson, Angelo Newby from Mass Housing. They have a lot of great programs.
Yep, Mass Housing has a bunch of good programs. Mass Housing Partnership has some good programs. You just have to keep an eye out for what's the best program. I mean, we have our own good internal first-time home buyer program, which actually gives you a little bit lower of a rate than some of the other programs that are out there.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Well, let's keep watching what's going on and try to notify people as changes are coming place and let people be educated about the real estate market.
Absolutely. I remember the Cy Sims used to say our educated customer is our best customer, and that's exactly the same way in the mortgage market.
Well, thank you for joining us again.
Thank you very much, John. Appreciate it.
Welcome back to the Register's Report again. My name is John Buckley. I'm the Register of Deeds of Plymouth County. I want to thank Stephen Amico for the great job he just did in describing the current mortgage market. Everyone's paying attention to the Federal Reserve decision this week, whether or not it'll impact rates immediately or long term is something we'll see going down the road. But Steve's always been very good at describing where we are and where we might be going in the future. In this segment of the show, we always do something a little lighter in nature, some of our Plymouth County history and Plymouth Colony history. This month had Labor Day, National Voter Registration Day, Oktoberfest coming up on the 21st, Equinox begins on the 22nd, National Pancake Day, and all these kinds of things on the 26th, National Chocolate Milk Day on the 27th. But let's talk about some of our great Plymouth County history. So it's the 200th anniversary this month of Plymouth Cordage Company. Many of you that have driven through North Plymouth have seen the cordage factories. It was the world's largest rope maker. It was begun many, many years ago, and it was begun by a company during the Industrial Revolution that really did a lot for their workers. They built housing, they had health care. They really tried to make sure their employees that were producing for them rope in the rope walks had education and housing. They kept its vibrancy by diversification with other products. The company's practices ended after 141 of operation, but it's a nice building still on that site. They developed being some housing and some other activities in the building today, and it's been designated a Massachusetts growth district. If you ever haven't been through there lately, take a ride through. There's some restaurants and other things that may catch your attention. The next Plymouth County notable record is, with everyone going back to school these couple of weeks, the Forest Ave School in Brockton, known as the Little Red Schoolhouse. It was originally located at the corner of Forest and West. It was a 2-room public schoolhouse and remains a great treasure in the city of Brockton. At one point, it was going to be demolished, but when they moved it, a group got together and preserved it. It's usually used for spelling bees and other things within the community of Brockton, and school children participate annually, and is listed on the National Register of Historic Places and managed by the Little Red Schoolhouse Association. And the next Plymouth County record is Pope's Tavern. A lot of people know that we're in a political season this year, presidential election coming up in about 6 weeks. But in the little town of Halifax on Route 106, where the Halifax Council on Aging is now located, there was once held a convention that elected John Quincy Adams as a congressman for that district. That was the center of that congressional district at the time. Now, John Quincy Adams was unique because he was elected president. They were Quincy Braintree people. And then he got elected to return to the National House of Representatives. And he served with his great devotion to that office. And he, died in the Capitol at one point at his desk. So the building was a private home for years, sold to the town of Halifax, and is the Halifax Council on Aging. And now we move on to our Plymouth Colony record. For every year since 2020, every month actually since 2020, we've promoted some of our Plymouth Colony records. And this one is from the year 1641, and this fellow, Nehemiah Smith, was looking to make a move out of Plymouth Colony, and he wanted to move his sheep with him. But there was a rule in those days that you could not move the sheep out of town without bringing it back to the town first and offering those sheep for sale. So he started to move his sheep, had to bring them back to the town of Plymouth, and had to offer his sheep for sale at 40 shillings, I'm sorry. And if he didn't sell all his sheep at 40 shillings, he could then make a move. But those restrictions were for a purpose. The communities in those days, the 1600s, were very, very much on the border of falling apart. They had to have these rules to make sure that they were able to sustain themselves. So the colonial court would make many decisions like this that would be looked at as really odd today. But in those days, they made those kind of decisions to make sure they could survive. And part of our story of our great history. I want to thank the people here at the local scene for helping me do this show again today. We loved telling people stories about for what most people is the most valuable asset. We try to share all this information so you can make good decisions. And in the end, I know you will. So we will see you next month. It will be, by then we'll be getting into the month of October and we'll be talking about September recordings. So thank you very much for watching the show.